What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioS3 Raw TV. So, since putting out the videos about the stims, which I did have a feeling it was gonna really kind of tweak some people out and freak them out and stuff. Of course, a lot of questions came with it. Not much negativity. Most people actually agreeing with me the fact that they feel they had some type of problem with caffeine or pre-workouts. Like they're actually addicted to them, or at least they're using them habitually. Not even that they think they need them anymore. It's just part of their habit or their ritual, right? Kind of an addiction. So, a few other people with questions, and again, these are good questions. They're like, Jerry, what about coffee? You know, you're talking about pre-workouts, you're talking about fat burners, but what about coffee? And I thought that was kind of a weird thing. So I'm like, I talked about caffeine, and there's caffeine in coffee, right? And they're like, well, I've heard that coffee doesn't have the same effect on the heart long-term, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, really? So now I kind of stepped back before I even really looked into it. I was like, if you have caffeine that you ingested through a pre-workout or something like that, or you took a pill like no dose caffeine anhydrous or something like that, or you drank enough coffee to get the same dosage in, right? You're still getting the same amounts of caffeine. Now, one of them you might actually have to, milligram wise, you might actually have to take in more of the coffee because the effect is much stronger of the caffeine extract rather than what you're getting digesting in the actual coffee itself. So I'm like, technically it should even out and be the same. Like even if, to get the same stimulant effect, you might have to take a little bit more of one than the other, but the same effect is going to happen to the body, right? It's kind of like sugar, like natural sugar cane and table sugar, right? Technically they're both sugars, but they both kind of digest at a different rate, right? They kind of break down a little bit differently, but ultimately they wind up at the same place. The sugars wind up as glycogen. That's exactly what we're talking about here. The caffeine winds up stimulating your central nervous system. They both wind up at the same place. So sorry, let me kind of check this out then. So I started doing as much research as I could, asking around, and not many people are talking about this stuff, so it's not many people to talk to about it. So I said, let me just research this stuff myself. The first thing I click on is a study about coffee, the caffeine in coffee, and how it doesn't have long-term health effects, and they studied it over all these years. And I was like, wow, like that's crazy. Like that's exactly the opposite of what they're saying caffeine does. They're saying coffee, that a natural caffeine doesn't do that, but caffeine in tea does, because they're saying coffee is the only thing that doesn't. So caffeine's different, and it really made me start thinking about what types of stimulants there were and how they might affect the body differently. But caffeine broken down eventually hits the central nervous system and has the same effect. Caffeine, it's the same exact thing. So if you're going to have long-term effects with one, ultimately you're going to have long-term effects with the other one. But the coffee is being drank a lot more often in frequency just throughout the day, not how many days in a row, than some of these other pre-workouts and stuff like that have the caffeine in it. So you're actually getting more caffeine from the coffee. So how could it possibly be that you're getting more of a stimulant over time, probably your entire life, and there's no long-term effects, but they do have long-term side effects, including heart attacks and stuff, on just regular caffeine anhydrous? How is that even possible? Like you can take caffeine anhydrous for a short period of time and have a heart attack if you take enough of it. The coffee, supposedly, you could take the same amount and be fine. You're not going to have the heart attack. I'm like, how is this fucking even possible? And then it started to make sense. I started to look at these studies, and they were all kind of saying the same thing, but they're not actually explaining why it doesn't affect the body like the caffeine anhydrous. So they weren't comparing it to these other caffeine studies. What they were doing is cranking up the number of coffee studies. So when people look for, and I started to Google this too, look up caffeine in the heart. Coffee now, these coffee research things pop up in that as well. So I'm like, this is really weird how these things are positioned and how it claims that it's actually like basically healthy for you to be drinking coffee. And on the same page is another thing saying caffeine can be detrimental to completely healthy people and give them fucking heart attacks in certain amounts. How can this even be? And then it dawned on me, I was like, wait a minute, coffee. Fucking, it's coffee. And I was like, what is the only fucking stimulant in the entire fucking world, free world or not, that is 100% fucking legal and is dosed every day fucking gazillions of times around the fucking planet all day and sometimes all night long? Coffee. Not energy drinks necessarily, not pre-workouts, coffee. And that is why these studies read the way they did. It's honestly, I don't believe it one fucking bit. I believe if you take a stimulant, whether it's cocaine, methamphetamine, caffeine, DMAA, or just regular caffeine. Did I say caffeine already? Anyways, all of those things can have a stimulant effect to your heart. Some are stronger than others, but that doesn't mean that the other ones can't have the same effect on your heart. That does not mean that. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite. These stimulants, when you put them in your body, each one of them or any of them can have an effect on your heart. So there's no fucking way that just because it's from a natural source that you can drink as much of it as you want for as long as you want, and you're not going to have the same side effects as somebody that takes a caffeine pill or an energy drink. It's complete fucking bullshit. Why they would fabricate it, all of these fucking things, and the way they're actually written, they're not comparing them to other actual caffeine studies. They're just talking about coffee in general and how that affects the heart. They're not even truly talking about caffeine in many of these studies. It's just the coffee they mention, right? So that way there, when people caffeine, the coffee thing pops up, they're like, oh, well, I drink coffee. It's cool. I can drink as much coffee as I want for the rest of my life and I'm fine. There's no fucking way. It's absolute bullshit. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. We've been led to believe a lot worse shit than this before. But my thing is, there should at least be a warning on the coffee label, right? If you buy the jar of coffee, the fucking box of coffee or whatever, could cause stimulation to your heart, which could cause long-term side effects. That would make me happy right there, right? Rather than just leaving that off. Like people that smoke, they know. You know, like they get those disclaimers on liquor bottles and stuff now talking about fucking liver disease and shit, cirrhosis of the liver. I'm like, at least just put that on there. But if they put those on the coffee boxes and cans and shit like that, now some people may take a step back and say, I don't want that because I don't want that to happen to me. So now it's like opens up a whole new thing. Like if there is truly a reason biologically why caffeine from coffee will not harm you, but caffeine not from coffee will, I would love to hear this explanation and truly have an explanation of why that is, because I couldn't find one and I've been digging. I really wanted to prove that coffee would be okay, because I know a lot of people that like coffee, and when they ask me my opinion, I say, hey, if it's a stimulant, I just stay away from it. That's my rule. You know, I would love to be able to tell my friends, yeah, I'd fucking go crazy with the coffee. You know, get off of all the pre-workouts, get off all the fucking stims, and just go crazy with coffee. Just do that. You know, I would love to be able to say that, but I can't. BioStraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. www.biostraining.com is the blog. It's the Coffee No-Go Bicep, and we are